Brady, tell me a little bit about your background, your involvement with just your upbringing, and clearly your not just attachment, but your why this issue is, why you're down in Carteret County in the first place.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned, from Maxton, North Carolina, Chief Cecil Hunt's, the Longhouse in Maxton, North Carolina is in Robeson County. Chief Cecil Hunt is our chief. And of course, I live in Hillsborough, North Carolina, but very connected with my tribe. I'm very connected with the culture in Robeson County and very actively involved. So the connection is the Tuscarora people here in North Carolina have ancestors all along the coast. The Tuscarora lineage goes all along the coast of North Carolina. So the ancient burial grounds that were discovered by the archaeologists, the state archaeologists, with over 2,000 artifacts that were found and bones that were found on the grounds, is affiliated with the Tuscarora people. So that would be our heritage, that would be our ancestors.
Got it.
So I was there to show support for our ancestors.
And honor them.
And honor our ancestors. And in the Native American culture, church is not a building to us. It's a religion. What we do when we have a ceremony, when we have what was commonly known as powwows, when we have those powwows, that's our religion, that's our church service. So what that entails is any grounds that we bless where we are by doing ceremony of drums and singing and burning sage or sweetgrass, that turns that ground that we're standing on into a religious ceremony for us. So going to the grounds and honoring the ancestors, we turn those grounds into our religious ceremony, and that honored the ancestors and gave us a chance to pray in our Native American traditional way.
Got it. So this has been discovered, obviously there's a village or whatever exactly it was, and that is important to you guys. Unfortunately, there are homes that have been built there just on the Sound in Carteret County. And so tell me, you were there, you were kind of having your service, and what ended up happening, because we see it on video when someone came and obviously became more than just a disagreement about y'all being there.
You're right, it is a subdivision.
Yeah.
People have paid for these properties, and so in the initial contact with the homeowner that was coming in off the water, that was kayaking or out boating,
Yeah.
I wasn't there for the initial conversation because I was getting in my vehicle. We were leaving when that interaction took place. Everybody was getting into the cars, the ceremony was over, and we were actually leaving the property when the homeowners came off the water. So the initial point of contact was the kayaker, which is a homeowner, and confrontation and arguments kind of started taking place with, what are y'all doing here? Why are you here? Understandably.
Yeah.
And when I saw that the conversation was getting a little heated and there was some anger and frustration, I stepped in and said, no, let's calm down. Let's talk about this. We understand you're a homeowner, and you probably weren't aware that that village was there. Clearly, nobody was aware that it was there until excavation started. So we understand that this is just as frustrating for you as it is for us. So we're not coming to argue against the homeowners or even against the situation of the excavation. We're not here for any of that. I want you to understand that we are only here to pray for our ancestors. This is a religious ceremony for us, and we're not here to cause violence. We're not here to protest what needs to be done, what bills are supposed to take place. That's not a part of what we're here for. We're here for prayer. And the woman proceeded to tell me, that was in the vehicle, the homeowner and her husband, it was a man and a woman, proceeded to tell me, I understand Native American culture because my great-great-grandmother is Native American. I said, okay, so you understand that this is religious for us. This is a ceremony for us of honoring our ancestors. And I said, what is your great-great-grandmother's name? And she looked at me and she stopped and her mouth open and she said, it doesn't matter what my great-great-grandmother's name is. All of us have ancestors here. We all have people buried here. We all have lineage and history to this country. And I said, you're lying. I said, ma'am, you're lying. and I said, we just want to honor our ancestors and this conversation's over. And when I said that, that's when it was, well, F your ancestors, F those bones, and F you, and they drove off.
And it escalated to more than that, where did somebody followed you, or
no.
So you got a gun pulled on this subdivision?
Yes. So a homeowner came back. The homeowner that came back before we were leaving, and you have to understand, this takes a while to get, we were in our vehicles leaving, and we were coming up the trail. We were blocked from leaving.
Yeah.
The cars that were coming in from the homeowners blocked us on this path that we could not get out. We were barricaded in. And when that homeowner blocked us, he got out of his vehicle and he came around, and he just, from the moment he stepped out of the truck, he came with this attitude of violence and anger and rage and finger pointing. And the next person that I saw come out of the, or come beside of me, I didn't see them come out of the vehicle or come from behind me, but they were standing beside of me, was in the woman Jane's face, who was body slammed to the ground. The man was in her face and the woman was in her face, and they were yelling at her and they were screaming at her, and the man turned and pushed the woman that was screaming at Jane. And I put my hand across the woman's chest and I said, do not scream at this woman, stop yelling. I said, don't push this woman, don't put your hands on this woman. And the man looked at me and said, that's my wife, and I will push her if I want to, and I'll push you. And that enraged Jane, where she got into his face and was pointing her finger across me. And that's when he reached for her and grabbed her around the neck and body slammed her to the ground. I was protecting his wife. He was in such a state of rage that he pushed his own wife first before he started any violence against us. This is the character of this man. This is who he really was. This is how he came from his vehicle to the situation. He came with anger. He came with violence. He came with rage. He was in such a state of rage, he pushed his own wife. He didn't care who he had to go through, who he had to harm or push or attack. He had violence and vengeance on his mind, and he got what he came for.
Ended up, there was another person. What the? Speak out of these are you think that we're here. What obviously the
freedom to worship. This is what this is a violation of. Federal law. This is a federal act that was violated. The attack on the Native American people and on our religion and on our culture, it's not seen as something that should be honored, even though there are laws, federal laws into place to protect it, just like there's laws in place to protect other people's freedom to practice religion. The gunman that approached me and put the gun to my face, what he did was no different than a gunman going into a sanctuary, going into a church, and openly carrying a gun into a building, a place of religion, and threatening the lives of people inside of a church sanctuary. There's no difference. To us, it's the same thing.
Where do you draw the line between, and this guy sounds like he was enraged for whatever reason, maybe he was intoxicated, I don't really know what, perhaps he was intoxicated and that got him going. And while if I owned a home in this...
I'm glad you mentioned the intoxication, because when the officer arrived, I said, look at his eyes, look at his eyes. His eyes are watered. I said, sir, something is wrong with you. I said, I don't know if you're on drugs, I don't know if you're intoxicated, but you are violent and you are not going to get away with this. And I kept telling the officer that this man, there is something's not right. His eyes were watered over, glazed over, the way he was enraged, and that level of violence. I stated to the police that I felt that he was intoxicated, or he had to have something in his system to have that level of adrenaline.
And they didn't seem to really give up.
Did not care.
Yeah. So where do you draw the line between, again, I'm not the person who, it's like you're leaving, but if this is now private, where do you draw the line that threatening you with violence and all that, but it's their land. I mean, so where's the line here between, well, you're on these people's property, so they have the right to defend their property?
That has been the beginning, trespassing.
Yeah.
These are houses that are for sale, lots that are for sale. The gate was open. I'm going to say to you what was said to us. We are not going to arrest you because we do not see that you were trespassing. The gate was open. Homes are for sale. This is a development. The area where we were parked was a boat ramp. It was large enough for boats to turn around, trucks to maneuver, their trailers for their boats. It was a large open area where we were parked. We were far away from the homeowners. So that area was still under development and far from the houses that were already developed. So that's where the police department took a stance and said, we are not going to arrest the Native American people that were here for trespassing because the gate was open and where they were was outside of the development area. Further to say, the homeowners left the safety of their own home. They came to us, barricaded us in, and threatened us with violence, and then wanted to accuse us of trespassing when we were just trying to leave the property before the violence occurred.
Do we know what's happened to these people that threatened you with violence? Have they been charged with anything? Or obviously that's part of the goal is to, you know, have some of these folks face some kind of prosecution for something, I would imagine, right?
Personally, charges are going to be taken out for the gunman. And we are questioning the police department about what is protocol when you arrive to the scene and there's a gunman. In the video that I provided, it was taken down, but I provided originally of the gunman. The officer did, when he first arrived, acknowledge that there was a gunman. He told him to stop where he was. The officer placed his hand on his holster, acknowledged that he was a gunman, questioned me, identify who is it, who's the gunman. I felt at that point justice was going to kick in, that this was going to be the time that law enforcement was actually going to do their job, help us to feel safe, resolve this issue. But the officer did nothing. The gunman left. He put the gun in his dashboard, stood in the crowd with the officer for a few minutes, and then just left. And when I asked the question to the detective that was assigned to the case, when I asked the question, what is the consequences of the man who pointed the gun to my face? He said, ma'am, you're going to have to go to the magistrate's office and take out papers. I said, the officer was there and witnessed the gunman. Why do I have to take charges out on a gunman? Justice was not done. The police department did not do their job. They did not follow protocol. There were no men. There were no men there. There was but one man. He was an older man and a 21-year-old young boy. The violence that we endured, the lack of protection that we had, it's too much. The girl that was attacked, the girl that was trying to protect her mother, the girl that was attacked, I met her for the first time at the Cedar Point prior to us going to the burial grounds. It was my first time meeting her, and I happened to bring up a conversation with her about her ribbon skirt. Ribbon skirts are the skirts that we wear that are traditional clothing. Her ribbon skirt had animals on it, and in our culture we call those animals, we have clan animals. And I was talking about her ribbon skirt, and I was talking about how I loved that she was honoring the clan animals. So what gets to me is when she was trying to protect her mother in the fight, the only thing that I could see was the skirt. And all I could think was, she's 17 years old and she's a child that we're supposed to protect. She should not be in this violence. She's supposed to be protected from it. That's what's hard, is that we were women and children and we had no protection. We didn't have protection on our side, and we didn't have protection from the law enforcement that showed up. It was just, there's no justice in this. We just came to pray and honor our ancestors. We weren't there protesting. We didn't have banners. We didn't have signs. No one knew we were there. We didn't bring attention to ourselves. And we were victims of a hate crime.